Hey everybody, welcome back. We did finish the repointing of the foundation on the front. I'm going to show that next weekend. We had some family stuff going on this weekend, and so a little tight on time, and I do have at least the beginning of this project I have to finish, and I don't want to rip the deck back apart to record that because I'm not going to be able to put it back together before I have to get back to work tomorrow morning early. Our Saturday kind of went to doing family stuff. But I have what is an outside access to my utility room underneath my house. And like we talked about before, I have a flagstone foundation. So I'm going to give you an idea of kind of the huge negatives to that we're dealing with. And I'm hoping I have decent enough light down here. I do have a light down here and stuff. Brought a flashlight in case. But so you can kind of see we had some ice issues when we first moved in here, and we were trying to figure out what it is. Oh, this room is entirely it. So to give you an idea, that is the floor to my kitchen, which is where we had most of our mice coming in. Okay, so give you an idea what flagstone foundation looks like. That's it. Okay, so those are literally the rocks that were pulled out of the ground when they built my house, and they used them with mortar, which is just Portland cement, sand, and lime that they mix together, and that's what holds it together, and does pretty well. You just have to repoint it every once in a while. The issue we run into, and some of this we kind of already tweaked because it got really bad, but most of it is the way it was. So there is whole sections up here that are like completely open. They're not sealed properly. You see the piping going into the house. Okay, see that wood there? That's my yard. Okay, that wood piece here, we installed this one. This one was here. As you could see through here, that goes straight to outside. That board is not held in place in any way. The only thing holding the dirt from the yard coming in is that piece of OSB, which most people know is not rated for contact with the ground, so it's rotting. I'm learning that stuff myself. We had my stairs here leading downstairs are just cement blocks that have been stuck together. Same thing over here. That is extra mortar from another project I had to see if I could just make it look cleaner. Didn't work at all. But there's moss all over this. This side actually started caving in, and we actually got these stones at a really cheap price just to try and repair for the time being. This wood here is not rated for ground contact. I got it really cheap and threw it in real quick because my entire yard was coming into here and coming into my downstairs. So needless to say, we had some real issues. So that will all have to be removed. That will all have to get cleaned up. This is going to be my biggest headache. So this right here is the main water line coming into my property. It's my water meter. This right here is what they call heat tape. And it's electronic warming tape that it has to get plugged in every winter so that my pipes don't freeze, because this room has no insulation other than going to the top floor into the kitchen, which is the only room in the house that has any underfloor insulation. But we're going to try and repoint this, rebuild this, frame it up. I want to put new insulation up here. We're going to put mold resistant drywall up here. We're going to dirt floor. Okay, these are rocks from the foundation that already have kind of fallen out of these big crevices you're seeing. We're going to dig the floor down. We're going to put a cement floor in so we can properly install my water heater. And we're going to have a cement floor, drywall, walls. I'm going to probably just put kind of a basic frame up. I don't know if I'll even nail it into the floor joist system because it's not going to be an actual basement. On the paperwork for our house, it calls it one, but it's not a basement. It'll never be useful. I think it's an 8x8 room. But if I can insulate it in any way, and fix the foundation holes, I can keep the bugs and the mice and all that from coming in, and I also could probably save the money from having to run the heat tape. So this is the beginning of what it's going to look like. Give you guys kind of a starter look to this horrible mess of a project, so you can kind of see the end results when it's done. And my wife and I have talked about making an Instagram account for this because it's too hard to film what I'm doing in the middle of it. We could take photos. We'll see if we actually have time to do any of that video editing, stuff like that. Like I said, we're doing this in the middle of, you know, raising a kid and running a household and doing jobs, so that may or may not be possible. But we're just kind of trying to share the journey. So we're gonna build this thing up. We're almost done with the kitchen. One of the things we ran into is I came down here, and the reason this project started even is, if you look here, see if I can get it on camera, there's mold growing on the insulation. Now, when I was doing the plumbing for my kitchen, I didn't intend to do plumbing for the kitchen, but one of my shutoff valves broke, and I had to shut everything off, rip it apart. We don't know how long it was leaking. It was a small leak in the beginning that I noticed while I was pulling the sink out. But the fact that I have molding insulation, that's fabric, so it could be holding it in. I'm hoping I have no mold on the joists. The rest of them look okay. They're just old. But I have a whole new thing, because this, I believe, is R19. I'm going to replace it with R30. Spend a little extra money, fill in the foundation with mortar, just get it repacked, get it cleaned up so that we don't have the same issues. We're going to build a proper door frame. My father-in-law actually gave us this door because he was able to build me at least a basic door frame for the time being. When we first moved in here, it was literally just a piece of wood with one of those hooks on it, hold it in place. So yeah, we're going to try and at least get this thing air, moisture, and critter tight. It is getting to the end of September, and due to my work schedule, I only have the abilities to really do anything on the weekends. So we'll see. It's going to be a little tight. And then once we have this part done, we can finish the insulation or the flooring in the kitchen, and that project will be done. Because this is the only place where I can do insulation under the floor, because I can actually get under the house. Because as you can see, that's not a crawl space. We don't have one here. Unfortunate, but like I said in one of my other videos, we cut the floor out. There's no way to get under the house anyway. So I'll get another video up probably next weekend, kind of showing the work I did on the front, where the skunks were getting in, but that issue is resolved. I don't know how pretty it is, but at least we got the project done, and I got to play with mortar enough to kind of get to know how to work it. I will say, when you're working like larger gaps, even when you're trying to put stones in place, because you can't just throw the mortar in there, a million tools. No, I ended up just using my hands for most of that, just trying to get in those weird tiny crevices. Kind of messy, but it really wasn't that bad. I will say, the bags of mortar, really, really cheap if you're willing to do it yourself. I think the most I've seen on any of those is like $8 a bag. It'll do quite a bit of work. I mean, to do this whole area down here, because I have some big voids, I mean, I'll probably do less than 10 bags. I mean, it's under $100, and the only other ingredient is water. So, I mean, granted, I had to pay for my drill and my mixer, so that'd be part of it, and then the rest is just kind of sweat equity. The insulation, I bought a pack of 11 bats. I think that was around $70 after tax, so not too terrible. So not clowning the floor, that's going to cost me a little bit, digging that out and putting concrete down. But just the repointing of the foundation and replacing these bats, as long as there is no mold on the joist, it's probably going to be, I'd say under $200. When I get to doing the concrete on the floor, it'll get a different price, because the water heater is installed down here. I'm going to have to look into seeing how deep the concrete slab has to be. There's a tiny little piece that they had put in here for under the water heater, but that's not going to be technically up to code. We just got to pass on it because it was pre-existing in the house, and they won't make you update a house just to meet code. But if we are going to do the updates, I'm going to probably have to put, I'm assuming at least 3 to 4 inch slab down here, which means I'm going to probably have to pay for all the metal to go in there to give it proper supports. We're going to have to find ways to hook up the panel a little better because mortar does use water, so I'm not sure I want to mess with the electrical too terribly with it being on. So as we get closer to that side of it, I may actually have to call the city and have them come out and turn the power off just for safety. We'll see as we get closer. Maybe I have a way to plastic up around it enough that I'd feel safe and comfortable doing it, but it's not generally a good idea to play around with electrical, especially we got water. I do have my water line here. That shutoff valve is for the main one to the city, so I'm going to probably actually have to call the city because I don't think they'll let me do my own plumbing on that valve. It does need to be replaced. It's already kind of rusting. It works, so it will shut off the water to my house, but I noticed when I had to shut it off that it was on its way out, and it's better to replace it before it is. But because it's right before the water meter, I do not believe I am allowed to touch any of that. I think the city requires that a city contractor plumber comes and does that, so that'll probably cost me a little bit. I'll let you guys know how much that ends up being or whether or not I'm allowed to do it. But there's going to be, I think, at least real value in here. I mean, just the loss of energy on the water heater because it's during the winter, it's got so much cold water pushing against it, or cold air pushing against the water, and having to use the heat tape just to make it so it doesn't freeze as it goes in there. That's not an efficient way, especially since we have an electric water heater. Everything in our house is electric. It's probably one of the reasons our power bill during the winter is so high. One of the things that started all these projects, is when we moved into our house. It can get cold up here. It's Pacific Northwest, so sometimes it gets into the negatives. Our house is about 1,450 square feet. I think our highest power bill in the winter was like $408, and it was, so if we could insulate under the floors and fix things like this where we're not spending, huge amounts of money to heat water, because a water heater keeps the water heated at all times. That's a lot of money to waste. So if we can do little projects for, under $1,000 here and there to save huge amounts of money, I'm going to do them. And I'm going to show people kind of what I'm doing and why, and see if other people like it. The other thing we did last weekend, is one of the reasons we can get time to videotape anything, is we installed an attic ladder to my house because we didn't have one. The old entryway was something like maybe 14 inches by like 24 inches. I am 6'3" and over 250 pounds. I couldn't get into my own attic to even work on anything. So my brother-in-law came over. He works on houses. You can't really do it with one body. And we had to reframe the attic and get that installed. My wife asked if I was going to put plastic down before I did that. I did not. I shot backed everything up. It may have ruined our carpet upstairs. Now, we had already intended to replace the carpet upstairs, but FYI, spend the money on plastic and not irritate your wife, because we're not replacing carpet this year or next year. And now she wants to buy a steam cleaner for the carpets, which is 100% fair. But if I had just thrown plastic down, we probably could have saved that expense. Because now we're talking about we're going to probably keep carpet upstairs even after we renovate everything, just because that's where the bedrooms are at. So just FYI on the starting projects and stupid decisions not to make. And if you're going to put wood up like I did on framing, get wood that is treated so that it can actually have ground contact. They do sell that. You just have to read the labels or ask a guy in the lumber department, so make sure you're buying the right stuff. But give you an idea kind of where we're starting. I won't finish this room this week or next week, so I'll keep you guys up to date as we go. But you can kind of see the general mess of it all. So, thanks for following along. I'll let you know where we get it up.